I especially like the fact that he tried to show that you can get under even though you're physically higher than the other person. So it has nothing to do with dropping the hips.
We've seen at least the gentleman on the left before, and he's done a video actually a couple months ago that we liked. So we're going to see what he's doing this time around, and he's actually trying to do what he calls agete, although you'll see it looks a little bit more like push out.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I just play it one time, and we can kind of get all your reactions.
Action.
Okay, so this is again the agete stuff which Rob and Mike were talking about. So we're just showing different versions. So there are 2 or 3 major components to this, right? So when Rob grabs me, not Rob, sorry, Bob grabs me, one of the things we have to realize is like the moment he grabs me, I'm creating a path to the back hole, the jing hole in the back, right? So I'm going underneath and I'm just pushing him away, right? So again, once more, if you grab, right, if you can do from here as well, grab here, right? So I'm like basically, the force is going to the ground and I'm pushing off his jing hole, right? So I'm pushing him back, right? So that's one, and you can do that from any position as well. If you lean, right? I can do it from here as well because he's got a path and he's pushing, right? Do it again, here, I'll sit. He's leaning, and again, the force is going to the ground and I'm pushing him off the path, right? And it doesn't matter where you stand. I can stand on this chair as well. And if he grabs me, right, I'm still going underneath and I'm pushing him away. Once more, here. Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
I think that's a really good basic overview of the concepts in terms of like, what they're doing. And I especially like the fact that he tried to show that you can get under even though you're physically higher than the other person. So it has nothing to do with dropping the hips. And so, I mean, I would just say, like, look, I get that. Forrest used to demonstrate this, I believe, right, Hunter?
Yeah, he had his stupid gin tricks that we talked about, and I'll put a link to that down below. And that was one of the things that he would say. He'd be like, well, maybe a judo guy drops down, to lower center of gravity of the floor. But, if you understand how to use your body correctly, you don't need to physically drop your body to get underneath them. And
Right.
Vivek actually did a great job showing that when he gets up on that chair, he's still able to get underneath his partner without having to physically lower himself. One thing that I thought was interesting is he's talking about trying to find the hole that his partner has. When we're doing agete, I don't think we're specifically looking for the hole. I mean, you could aim, the force that you're creating in a hole that someone's weak. Granted, that may be more applicable to people standing. So for people who aren't familiar with a hole, all right, so if you look at my fingers here, my right finger here is going to be like your right front leg. Your left finger is going to be the back leg. And you're standing pointing, your face pointing forwards. If someone exerts a force in this direction here, that'd be a hole. That'd be a line that you're weak on. Whereas if someone exerts a force along the path between your front foot and the rear foot, you're able to resist that force of direction. So,
the imaginary third leg.
Yes. But, at least when you're seated, that hole it's not as apparent. So Mike, what did you notice about that video?
No, I think it's from what I read. It demonstrates fairly coherently what they talk about in the forum. So I thought that was fine for what it is. No complaints. And I think he demonstrates quite well. And I think I like different versions. And this. I don't think we worry about a hole too much, and because you're trying to Well, maybe I'm going a little bit too far because he's just demonstrating this part, but like when you grab someone, you're already taking their balance. So that kind of step seems to me you just go over that step without worrying about it. But other than that, I think it's good.
Now, I did say it looks a little bit like push out, and the reason I said that is that a lot of the motion was a little bit more linear, going back and forth. Granted, he's coming from underneath. When you're doing push out, you're not really trying to go, I would say, directly under, trying to come up from underneath. That's not really the goal that you're trying to do. I mean, it's actually something I've mentioned this before. That's kind of like how I approached it. You know, I tried sourcing power from my lower back. I tried sourcing power from my hamstrings, the calves, everywhere else. And, you know, like I said in another video, you can't get any lower than the ground. So that's one way which I saw different from, you know, from what we're trying to do. Another being, if you watched when Vivek did some of the motions, not all of them, but some of the motions, particularly when he was in the seated position, he did kind of come up off the floor a little bit, which if that happens for us, it's kind of incidental, maybe because you got pulled, not because you're trying to push off of your feet to cause the person to go forwards.